Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University.
Know that your story matters and that you have a message that the world needs to hear.
You can get your message to the end user now so much easier.
It can't just be about you. Influence is about others.
And again, it all goes down to serving your audience and making a true, real connection with them.
Hi, I'm Michael Hyatt. Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit sponsored by Platform University. I'm here with my good buddy, Bob Golf. And in case you don't know Bob, he's the author of the New York Times bestseller, Love Does. He's also an attorney, and he's the founder of Restore International, which operates in Uganda, India, and Somalia. And he does an amazing work, just human rights work and that type of thing. But I've asked him here today to talk about his best practices when it comes to influence and impact. So, Bob, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much, Mike. I'm just delighted to be on the same screen with you.
Oh, it's a blast. We got to get together more.
Yeah, totally. But, you know, there's something about being connected kind of in spirit. I know what you're doing. You kind of generally know what I'm doing.
Yep.
And we kind of chest bump over the
airwaves. That's right. over Twitter. Well, hey, for people that may not be as familiar with your story, could you just give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, well, so I'm married to Sweet Maria. I've been married for 29 years, 1 month, and 22 days.
Congratulations.
I didn't prepare. I just keep track of that, you know? If she doesn't keep track, she's never asked me once, but she just figuring out, like, the biggest people in your life. And then I have these 3 great kids, Lindsay, Richard, and Adam, and 2 of them are married and 1 isn't. And I spend my days, used to spend them being a lawyer, kind of practicing law, which was terrific. And eventually that started shifting for me because there's a difference between practicing law and doing justice, right? Isn't the one is bad, or it's just different. And so one of the things that we've been doing is overseas. I wrote a book. And we just gave all the money away, which is so fun. And we started, you were a big part of that. It would have never happened if you didn't.
I'm so grateful. Yep.
Yeah. So we started a school in Uganda, and then we started the next one in Somalia. And we started one about last year, Mike, in Iraq. So we got one in Iraq.
Wow.
We got an orphanage in Nepal. And I just got back from Mongolia in the Gobi Desert. Isn't that awesome? We're starting a school there.
Awesome.
For these nomadic kids. It's great. I mean, there's no school, so I'm thinking about, like, we'll have this school, I'll have a banner up, you know, we'll start a football team, and I'll say, undefeated. So that's it. So I spend my time overseas with these folks and then just trying to be helpful. And then the rest of the time, just spend it with people because this is the time in my life that I just want to be with people because later I'm going to have grandkids. Right? I want to make hoodies that say, make people, give them to all my kids. So later I'm going to be a grandpa, and because I know who I'm becoming, it informs who I am right now. And so I'm just going to be with everybody now because there's going to be skid marks to a stop as soon as somebody says, like, it's a boy or a girl. Like,
that's awesome.
Hanging out with my kids. So that's me.
It's so fun. Well, thank you for sharing that. You know, I want to dive in with a statement that is on the homepage of your website. I want to unpack it. It says, quote, I used to be afraid of failing at something that really mattered to me, but now I'm more afraid of succeeding at things that don't matter. That is such an unbelievable, powerful statement. Could you just unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I, like you, like everyone listening, I've had a couple of good ideas that worked, and I've had a couple of stupid ideas that have worked. I've had a couple of terrific ideas that didn't work. And so I used to kind of measure how things were going by whether it worked or not. And what's something that's changed is just a quarter of a turn usually in each of our lives. And the quarter of a turn for me is I'm not asking, does it work? I'm saying, does it last? Yeah. Right? So you could spend your whole life doing things that worked. And then if it turns out none of them last, then it doesn't make any impact. And it's super easy. It doesn't have big cosmic things. Just like loving people lasts. It just does. And so I've just made that quarter of a turn change. And, the king of Bhutan, he doesn't measure gross national product anymore. He measured gross national happiness. Isn't that crazy?
I love that.
Yeah. So instead of measuring like their growth by how big their economy is, he's measuring it by how happy everyone is. And he's got this whole like dashboard of metrics that they use. And so we have an environmental impact report. They do a happiness report before they do. So I almost like, it's not a written deal, but I say it's almost like, is this going to last report?
Yeah.
So, and if it's people, it's usually going to last. If it's a program, maybe yes, maybe no. But if it's people, it always lasts. And start with your family. That's going to last.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so instead of making things more complicated, leave it to lawyers to make things complicated. I'm just saying, what's the like simplest way to do this? And I've been trying to do a lot of that.
Well, the thing I love about that is I think it's easy as an influencer, somebody that has influence, to give all your time away to the masses. You know, people that are acquaintances, people that you don't may not really have that much impact on, and neglect the people that are closest to you. And I've been so struck by the ministry model of Jesus, where instead of coming at a time when there was social media and it would have been easy to connect with the masses, instead he kind of went at the opposite perspective and poured himself into 12 guys that turned the world upside down.
Yeah, bingo. And one of those 12 guys, you know, didn't work out. One of his own Sunday school guys went south on him. So one of the things that I like in the Beatitudes, he talked about how Jesus just went out and sat among them. Yeah. And I think we have in our mind's eye, because of our universe of experience, that there's a stage and some lights and a smoke machine. And I think stages do weird things to people. So I like the idea of just, you know, go among people. And I can imagine there's people like leaning in to say, like, you know, hear him. And then there's another row of people that can't quite hear him. So they're probably doing what you're doing on this. They're leaning back and they're saying, he just said this, right? Yeah. So it'll be just the thing like this game of telephone. And what if we just, the messaging we give is just simple enough that somebody could turn around and say, he just said this.
And not mess it up. Right.
Yeah, we don't need to make it super complicated. Just like love everybody always. And start with the people who creep you out. Right? It's easy to love, like you're a lovable guy, but find somebody who kind of creeps you out, like that you don't understand. That's what I'm working on. You know why? Because it's going to last. It'll last my life, right? I've been making that shift to being that next humblest version of me.
That's
right?
Fantastic.
That guy knew who he used to be. Who's the next humblest version of Bob? And it's like heaven is leaning over the rails saying, oh, we want to talk to that guy.
I love that. So speaking of love, your book, I remember talking to you the first time I heard about it. I don't know if you remember this, but we were sitting at Sapphire Restaurant in Franklin, Tennessee, first time I'd ever met you.
Yeah.
And it was you and me and Don Miller, and I think Gail was with me, but I can't remember. And you explained that you had this book, and I thought, I mean, I was the CEO of Thomas Nelson at the time, and I talked to authors all day, every day. So for me, you were just another guy with a book. And, I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but you were lovely. But, you know, so I remember Don sent me the manuscript, and I was actually going to be in court giving a testimony on this one particular day, and the judge, for reasons I still don't understand, threw me out, said I couldn't be in the court. And I had your manuscript with me. So I sat outside all day waiting for the court proceedings to progress, and I read your entire book, something I would never do as the CEO of a publishing company, but I loved it. And I remember going back to Brian Hampton, who ended up being your publisher, and I said, we got to do this book. I mean, this is amazing. But what was it? Well, let me ask you this. What has changed for you since the book came out?
Well, you know, I put my cell phone number on the last page of the book, so that changed a lot, right? And I know one of the things that's kind of beautiful for me and you and the people listening in is that we're all wired differently, right? So I think about Jesus' model, that he was just available to everybody. You know, if a woman pulls on his shirt, he's like, who was that, right? And little dude's in a sycamore tree, he's like, lunch on you. He had time for everybody. And I was getting really efficient in the way that I love people. That's not bad. It's just like, that's not me. That's not the guy I'm turning into. And so I asked, and you guys were nice enough to let me put my cell phone number on the back. And I don't know how many people have it, but quite a few. I bet I get 100 calls a day. It's awesome. And you know, the great part is don't send anybody to voicemail. And you know what's beautiful? I don't know if it's any good for them, but it's really good for me to become this next guy. And my underlying premise is that I don't think people follow vision. I think they follow availability, right? And so I don't need to be the smartest guy. I want to be the most available guy. And I never know, like, who's calling, whether it's somebody who's 8 or 80. One lady called, she said, I got this book for my birthday and read it. Honey, this is going to change the rest of my life. I'm like, oh, happy birthday. How old are you? She said, I'm 104. I'm like, both days, right? So what if we do this? We just think, if that's your wiring harness, to just be available. And then you can be smart about it, right, too? I have an email address. People have that. It's bob@bobgoff.com. You know why it's that? I have these 3 women I love a lot, and they all get a copy of it. Nobody answers, but just like, I want to be the same guy at 1 foot deep as I am 30 feet deep. I want to be that guy. And best way to do that, just include everybody. This is awesome. It's a party line.
So, there's a lot of people that are watching the Influence and Impact Summit that have a desire to have more influence and have more impact. What would you say to those people who are thinking about writing a book? How has that helped you, if it has, extend your influence and have more impact for the things that matter to you?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a flag in the sand. The beautiful thing is that if you accept this idea that we're new creations, like that you'd say, it telegraphs a little bit about the person that you're turning into, a little at a time. And so it becomes this great way to, like, say, what do you really think about things? And I use just really simple stories, because that's what Jesus did. Like, I talked about shiny pennies. He talked about wheat, I talk about my kids. He talked about 2 sons, and one said all the right things and the other one did all the right things. So I just say, what's the simplest way to do that? And one of the things that I have a practice of doing, we talked about this before, I write down everything I think about everything. I'll send myself 60 emails a day off it's something I think about. I'll just send myself an email. And then I can't have, like, some people have quiet times. Like, I'd make coffee nervous. I'm like, ah. So my times are very loud. And I just go through all the things I've emailed myself during the day. And I just say, okay, I know it sounds right, but is it really true? That's a big difference, right?
Wow.
So a lot of things sound right that just don't happen to be true. And so because faith's a big deal for me, I just go in to read things that just say, is this actually true? And if it's true, then I send it out as a tweet if I think it's true. But I don't give a bunch of Bible verses, right? If you want Bible verses, the Bible's full of them. I just want to, let's just say, this is, in my words, something that actually I think is true, my best guess.
Well, your stuff gets shared unbelievably. I mean, I can't believe the number of shares around your quotes. They're fantastic.
And every once in a while, you'll get somebody that disagrees with you, kind of like Scripture Police. They'll say 2 Kings, whatever says. I don't engage that. I just block them. I don't think bad things. So just, we're done. So what if you do that with, like, skip over all the angsty part and just say, oh, we're not connecting on that. It's all good. Right?
Okay, so keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing, Michael, I don't know if this would be helpful to your listeners, but when people, like, do something that's just kind of wonky, right? Just go, what? I used to, like, because I'm a lawyer, I have all these opinions about stuff. I used to form all these opinions, and now I just think 3 things. First, I say they're probably smarter than me, because oftentimes they're using words I have to look up. I'm like, I have no idea. So smarter than me, I say they probably love God more than me. Just assume that. That's out of Philippians 2. It just says, like, consider each other more worthy. And then here's the important part. I come up with the least creepiest explanation for whatever just happened, right? It's easy to come up with the most creepiest explanation. Yeah. I come up with the least creepiest explanation. And oftentimes the least creepiest explanation I've come up with is they're probably right. Isn't that awesome? And sometimes if I don't think they're right, I think, well, another explanation is they're having a bad day. I've had a couple. I bet you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's been super helpful to me.
Do you know Lucy Swindoll?
Yes.
So she has a similar approach to critics. So when she would get criticism, or when she does get criticism from people, the first thing she says to them, she says, you know what? You might be right.
I love it. Good. It's all good. What if you just think of us instead of a bunch of soloists, we think of each other as a symphony. And that's just guys just banging the kettle drums. Bless his heart. Go bang away. But you don't need to give them the microphone in your life. They say that in Uganda. It's not restricted to Uganda, but they say you never give them a microphone. Don't let go of it, because then it's their microphone. And, I mean, they'll always say, I only have a few things to say, and, I mean, your clothes will go out of style. You'll never get that thing back. And so I'm really picky about who I give the microphone to in my life. And maybe your listeners could be picky. Just hang on to it. Be polite. But just say, and then the least creepiest explanation for that. Just be kind to people. Sometimes they're kind of janky, but they don't need that messaging from me. They've got it their whole life.
Yeah, that's
I got to tell you, I spoke at a church last Sunday, and no lie, a woman walks in to the front row of this thing and sits down. She's got a boa around her neck. Not like feathers from the 50s, like with fangs and eyes. And I totally lost track of what I was saying. I'm like, oh, my gosh. And then I said, what's the least creepiest explanation for this? And I knew what I came up with. I'm like, maybe she doesn't know. And so I was just back on track. So I was picturing her, like, ducking under a tree, and it just kind of got on it. So if we do that with one another in our business relationships and other things, just it's a riff on this idea of just assuming the best of motives from people. But sometimes people don't have good motives, but you can still come up with kind of a less alarming explanation for whatever happened. And then you're not on guard all the time.
I want to go back to the book just on one thing, and that was fantastic. And then I've got some other questions. But why do you think the book has been so successful? And I don't want you just to deflect to God. God made it happen. I get that. But what do you think about it? Why did it resonate, and why did it work? Because it was on the New York Times list for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you've ever been invited somewhere, and when you got there, you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not welcome here, right? So there's that happens to me all the time. That's just Tuesday. But I want people not to just be invited to things and invited into our books and invited into our lives, but actually welcomed when they got there. And so that's very much like a central principle for me. I never invite anybody anywhere because I just want to welcome them instead. And there's a big difference between the two. One, you do it because you're supposed to, right?
Right.
My son got married. We send all these wedding invitations out, and it's like $200 a plate. I'm like, don't they make corn dogs? And so I invited this family because I was supposed to, and they RSVP'd. They said they were coming, and their kids are like nuts. Like all of the neighborhood cats would be missing if they showed up. And so when they RSVP'd and they said they were coming, I'm like, no, just because I invited you didn't mean I wanted you there. One of the things we got to do, I think, if we're going to love people well, is stop inviting people and start welcoming. Okay? Wow. Because there's something beautiful. And I think my hope was that the pages would make people feel welcome. Whatever their background and experience and life thing, it isn't like, well, if I want your opinion, I'll tell you what it is. Just like, we don't have to tie a bow on everything. Just say, like, I don't know. Just talk about shiny pennies, talk about things that people can relate to, and welcome them. Just say, I don't know. That's it. And the other reason is that there's people like you and Brian and Don Miller and other people that made my words better. Surround yourself with people that make your words better. That's it. Those are the people you want. You got room around your deathbed, Mike, for 8 people, 9 if they're thin, right? And I've just said, who are the 8 people I want around my bed on my last day? And I'm trying to surround myself during my life with those 8.
That's fantastic. Well, I definitely felt welcomed into that book, and that's a fascinating distinction, the idea or the difference between inviting people and welcoming them, because I feel the same way, but I want to get better at welcoming people too. That's amazing.
And then welcoming some people that you don't understand. Be like, dude, I don't get that. And say, like, just come. And Jesus talked about that. I mean, when I meet him, I want to ask him how he made Yosemite. I mean, like 2 waterfalls or 3. And then what's the deal with Half Dome? Did like the phone ring halfway through? And you know what he says he wants to talk about? hungry people, thirsty people, strange people, sick people, naked people, and people in jail. That's it. And so what I'm trying to do with my life now, because I want to do things that last, I want to have things to talk to Jesus about. So literally, those are my 6. I literally give like water bottles to people. I'm like, are you thirsty? They say yes. I'm like, yes. And you know, we've got In-N-Out Burger. Jesus and his angels made that place. I give people doubles, right? And I say, are you hungry? Actually, we even have a nude beach in San Diego. I stand at the top of the cliff and throw socks over. Just find people and then just help them in ways. Great. Why? So you'll have things to talk for eternity about.
When did you make the decision to go from being a lawyer to being an author? And I know you still were practicing law after you became an author for a while, and then to become a philanthropist. Kind of walk us through your decision-making process. When was it time to make that shift?
Yeah, so I had a day job. I had to own this law firm for 29 years. It was up in Seattle. I would commute from San Diego. Is that nuts? I got frequent flyer miles. And so I would go up in the morning. I'd come back for supper. And so I think what happens is you, just like when you fall in love with someone, you know when you touch knees the first time on purpose? Yep. And it's like, oh, you know, and that's somehow this touching knees with the poor and the hungry, like, it just started ruining my career. One at a time, you know, just an inch at a time, and I started spending more and more time. And then that ended up swallowing up all the time I spent practicing law. And, you know, I quit something every single Thursday.
Right.
So I literally walked into my own law firm on a Thursday and said, we're done.
Wow.
With what? I didn't try to sell it. I didn't try to land the plane. We got everybody jobs somewhere else so they didn't miss a house payment, but then we just sold the file cabinets and we're done. And I think sometimes it's just as easy as that. We spend all this time trying to land the plane. We never get on the ground. You know, if you have something, and the perspective is, okay, who's the guy I'm becoming, then just say, what are the steps? What's the next smart step to get there? And so for me, it was eventually going from probably 100% or 120% of my time practicing law to 90 to 70 to 50 to 30, and then just eventually pulling the chocks and saying, we're done. And it's a bad, like, economic model, but it's a beautiful life model, right? I think we spend a lot of time, we pick our career and then we backfill our life. I think what I wanted to do is pick my life and then backfill my career. And it wasn't because I got all this cash in the bank, right? I just say, who's the guy I want to be? And while we'd be known, like, kind of for our opinions, I want to be remembered for my love. So that's going to last. I want to be that guy. And I'm not going to get there by taking a bunch of depositions. It's not a bad thing. It's a great day job. But in this season, I'm 56. So I'm just going like, you know what? I think I got some runway here. Like, let's just see if we can get into some mischief. Because I'm the age of a lot of these folks. We just got back last week from Mogadishu, Somalia. I mean, it's terrifying. Amazing. But they won't teach these little girls how to read or write. You know why? They're girls. And there's nothing scares a terrorist more than a girl with a book, right? So we have a little girls' school, and they're just learning. It's just beautiful. So that has wrecked my career, but made my life. It's
wow. Great. That's such a great story. You know, you're really active, surprisingly so, on social media. I was just checking before we got on here that you've got like 164,000 followers on Twitter. And how does social media help you spread the message?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just really love the idea because I think kind of communally, there's this deal in Acts. It was chapter 2 and 4. It said they broke bread together and they had things in common. And so I'm really big on breaking bread and having things in common. You know, we have a table. You've signed it. We have our friends where we break bread together. They climb underneath the table and they signed it. I've said, like, you know, bad guys and good guys and undecided sign under this table, and we have, like, you know, that's the thing we have in common. And I kind of think of social media as that way. It's like signing underneath the table. It's saying, taking an idea, and we each contribute a little bit to this beautiful symphony that we're playing together. And I don't know, that some folks, they'll say things that they're frustrated about. And it's all good, mazel tov, like whatever. But most people don't want to know if I'm eating pizza. I just want to say, like, just things. And it's not trying to put a happy face on everything, but I really want to say what might last in my life and just think out loud so we could be in this together. Because I'm not trying to be popular. There's a difference.
There you go.
I want to be helpful, right? There's one thing. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, has it opened doors for you or created connections that wouldn't have happened otherwise?
Oh, heck yes. Oh, it's been terrific. What if you're just known, like, for being loving? Yeah, I know it's not so silly, but here would be a great exercise for the people that are listening in. Take away what you're known for. Now, what are you known for? Right? I used to be a big lawyer, partner at a law firm, like $100 million cases. Like, I was known for that guy. And take that away, and what am I known for?
Wow.
Right? So now I'm known for the guy with a book that has some balloons on the cover. Okay, take away Balloon Boy. What are you known for? And so, like, that's it. I'm always refining. What do I want to be known for? And I want to be known for my love, not for pithy sayings and all that. I just want to be known for my love. And I think most of us do. I think we long for that, and we want to be helpful.
Well, you're making great progress on that, because that would be the first thing I would think of when I think of Bob Goff, is the most loving, welcoming person I know.
Oh, man, that means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
I mean, seriously. So you're definitely on that path, and I love that. This really challenges me, too. So what is next for you, Bob? I mean, I know you're not a big planner, and you're just very spontaneous, but kind of what's on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, so you know this practice we have. They won't, while things get scheduled pretty far in advance, the people that help me out only tell me the next 3 days. That's it. I want to know today, tomorrow, and the next day. Isn't that great? So I could tell you I'm going to get on a plane here for Atlanta, and then I'm going to come home for supper, and then I think I'm going to Indiana. And then, so like everybody listening, you got a bunch of stuff that is the immediate, like what you're doing. But here's the bigger question for me. Who am I becoming? And I think that's what you're asking. And, I know it sounds like so weird, but I'm actually trying to become love.
I love it.
How do you turn into love? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm still turning into it. But if that's the big goal, then I'm not going to swing at every pitch that, like, somebody that's getting in the way of that big goal. And so somebody every once in a while will kind of, I'm a pretty hard guy not to get along with, but they'll kind of get in my face and like, what about this? What about that? And I carry around, you ought to do this, I carry around the sheriff's badge in my box, and I put it on my chest. And they're like, what makes you the sheriff? I'm like, I know, right? So what I'm trying to do is not give a bunch of rules. I just like point to something really beautiful that might last in my life and in other people's lives. But I'm not trying to come up with a program. Like, it's just a community of friends, like you, right?
That's fantastic.
Like, even when we're separate, we're still, like, together. Like, we get them. We're like, let's just go love people as best we can. We're all, like, fallen. We mess up. If you knew how prideful and messed up I was, you'd never have me on your show, right? If I knew how prideful and messed up all the people listening were, I'd never come. So what we want to do is say, get past all that stuff. We're not trying to varnish ourselves, but get more and more real, and then say, okay, how can we bring that to the equation? It's like Stone Soup. It's that kid's book. And somebody, like, throws in their carrots, and somebody throws in the tomatoes, and pretty soon everybody's fed.
Love it. Well, as we bring this interview to a close, and again, the people that are here really do want to increase their influence. They want to have an impact. They long to make a difference in the world. What would be your parting advice to them?
Oh, be really, really picky about what you say to each other. Just be super picky. When I say sharp words to people, I've got a little app on my phone, I bet you do too, where I can do some banking. Yes. And when I say a critical word to somebody, I literally go out of the room and I give away $500. I literally, for each word. Because I think our words are costing us way more than we can afford. And so I'm just like, that's been a great practice when I'm tempted, because $500 is about a round trip ticket to Maui. And I just think to myself, do I want to say something critical to this person that just said something kind of wonky? Or would I rather go with Sweet Maria to Maui? I'm like, pack my bathing suit. And so being really, really picky about what we say and realizing that our words have weight. Those women that are listening now, I mean, go into a room full of guys and just say, I feel really safe around all of you. And every guy in the room will be like, yeah, because we'll become whoever people tell us we are. It's beautiful. So as you're speaking to the people, I'm not saying blow sunshine at them. I'm just saying be really picky. Words of life and encouragement. Tell them who they're turning into. You're that guy.
That's terrific.
You're that guy. It's just beautiful. It's not just affirmation for affirmation's sake, but when we start seeing them that way, they start seeing themselves that way.
That's terrific. Well, Bob, thank you so much for joining us here. You've been so generous with your time. I love talking with you. It's like an infusion of energy. So
you just spoiled me, Ron. It's just fun. Please give a hug to the whole family for me, would you?
I will. And for you guys watching, I want you to go to bobgoff.com. If you haven't read Love Does, you absolutely must read it. Go to bobgoff.com, visit Bob's website, find out more about what he's about, and we can't wait to see you in the next session of the Influence and Impact Summit. Thanks.
Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University.
Know that your story matters and that you have a message that the world needs to hear.
You can get your message to the end user now so much easier.
It can't just be about you. Influence is about others.
And again, it all goes down to serving your audience and making a true, real connection with them.